This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good night, Dr. Mark Goulston. How are you doing on this wonderful, beautiful night?
I'm doing wonderful, except you must be night because I still see daylight.
Oh my, what part of the world are you in right now?
I'm in Los Angeles. The rain stopped. I'm looking at blue sky and everything is bright.
Oh, yeah, I'm in the Caribbean. It's 7:47 p.m. my time, which probably puts you at what, like 4:47, is it?
I'm actually at 3:47.
Ooh, 3:47, yeah. Daylight saving times switched on me. Yeah, I was there in September, August. I was in August. Time didn't switch just yet. Well, my friend, it's a great pleasure to connect with you. Do tell me which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this specific time in history.
Well, I think it's too much to say, but some people say I'm the world's foremost expert on empathic listening, and I teach it around the world. And I have a book called Just Listen, which is translated into 21 languages, and I teach empathy around the world. In fact, I went to Moscow and gave a 6-hour only me presentation to managers of the Russian Federation on listening and empathy, and they actually made a highlight reel. If you look up Moscow and my last name, Goulston, in YouTube, you'll find this 3 minutes, and that's my calling card.
Well, that's amazing. So who did you learn that skill from, that ability to listen, to actively listen?
Well, I was a suicide expert for 25 years, and none of my patients killed themselves. And I think the reason for that is I had a mentor who was a pioneer who actually started the field of suicide, studying suicide. He started the suicide intervention centers in Washington and Los Angeles. And he would do consultations to inpatients at UCLA who needed to be discharged, but they were still suicidal. And the residents didn't want to see them, and they weren't acutely suicidal, and you couldn't keep them forever. So he would meet with them, call me on the phone, and he would put them on the phone, and in his very loving, manipulative voice, he would say, "Mark, this is Ed. I'm with this handsome young man. I'm with this lovely young woman. They're in a lot of pain, Mark. You could help them." And so everything changed when the most deadly of all these patients, I'll call her Nancy, had made 4 suicide attempts, had been in hospitals for 3 months every year for 4 years. I was seeing her, and I didn't think I was making any progress. And on a Monday, I had been up 36 hours because I had been working at a state hospital over the weekend, what we call moonlighting. And when I was in the room with her, she never made eye contact. As I'm looking at her, all the color in the room turned to black and white, and I got the chills, and I thought I was having a stroke or a seizure. So I'm an MD, and I did a neurologic exam on myself, which wasn't rude because she wasn't looking at me, but I was so sleep deprived that I blurted this out. I said, "Nancy, I didn't know it was so bad, and I can't help you kill yourself. But if you do, I will still think well of you. I'll miss you, and maybe I'll understand why you had to get out of all the pain." And then I thought, did I say that or did I think that? And then I thought, I think I said that. I just gave her permission to do it. And she made eye contact with me for the first time in 7 months, and I thought she was going to say, "Thank you for letting me do it because I'm overdue." And I said, "What are you thinking, Nancy?" She looked right into my eyes, and she said, "If you can really understand why I might have to kill myself to get out of all this pain, maybe I won't need to." And then she smiled, and she gave up her suicidality. And so what I realized about people who feel suicidal, it's not the depression that kills them. It adds to it. It's at the end Most suicidal people, maybe all of them, feel despair. And if you break the word despair into DESPAIR, it means they feel unpaired with all the reasons to live. They feel helpless, hopeless, powerless, useless, worthless. Life is meaningless. And at the end, they say it's pointless. And they pair with death to make the pain go away. But if you can pair with them in the dark night of the soul, and if it doesn't scare you away and you just keep them company there, they start to cry. And when they start to cry, they start to feel not alone. And they start to peer with you. And when they start to do that, they cry some more and they start to feel hope. So does that give you any idea of kind of where I started?
Yeah, that definitely sums it up tremendously. You're a great storyteller, my friend. I had to remind myself that I'm interviewing you, and I love it. I looked at a YouTube clip with you before I got on here. It was pretty intriguing. Your storytelling ability is tremendous, which indicates to me that more than listening to others, you're an active listener of yourself. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's very true, and something that I'll say to you and I'll say to other people. If you want to get through to people and help them, this doesn't have to be just in the dark moments of their life, but when you get someone to tell you about an incident so clearly that you can see it with your eyes, at the moment you can see it with your eyes, they re-experience it, but they re-experience it with you instead of alone. I have a podcast called My Wake Up Call, and I interview very influential people and what matters to them most and where it started, and I launched it with Larry King. And I said to him, I said, you're very curious about the way you interview people. Where does that go back to? And he said, well, my father died when I was 9, and I guess, and I like to make people laugh, and he died suddenly. I guess it goes back to that. And so I said to him, this is the beginning of the interview, take me to the moment when you heard he was dead. So that's right there. And he immediately went into that, and he said, I came home, my mother was screaming, there were 2 policemen there, one of the policemen was crying, and another policeman took me to a movie, Baton. And when he said that, he went back to it. And then I asked him, I said, this curiosity you have, do you think you were more curious before your dad died or after he died? And he paused and he said, I think I was more curious after he died. And I said, is it possible that you became more curious because when your dad died, the person who could explain the world to you was taken away, so you had to find out about it on your own? And then he said, I never thought about it that way. And that's how my podcasts are. I mean, I connect to people, and I'll have you on one of them.
Yeah, sounds like fun. I definitely look forward to that. Well, Doctor, let's switch gears for a moment now. Let me now invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. What is your earliest childhood memory?
That was your earliest childhood memory?
What is your earliest childhood memory? Yes.
Okay. I think my earliest childhood memory, it's interesting you're saying that. I think I felt fearful, and I'm ashamed to say this, but at times when I was very young and I'd have nightmares, I'd crawl into my parents' bed, and my mother would hold me. And I haven't remembered that for years. And it's interesting you bring that up because I'm seeing myself getting into her bed and her holding me. And it's interesting because when I grew up, she had some issues. But as I picture me going in there, a lot of the issues she had and a lot of the issues I had with her, as we're speaking right now, they're evaporating. So thank you.
You're welcome. How old were you in that memory?
42. No, I'm just kidding. I think I must have been, I was out of the crib because I could walk there, so maybe 3 or 4.
How do you see that memory connecting to who you are today?
Well, I guess, it's interesting. Recently, I've said to my peer groups who are entrepreneurs, I said, it's time for me to come out. I'm going to stop apologizing for something. And they're all pedal to the metal entrepreneurs, and they're successful. And I'm much more famous than I am rich because I don't focus on money. And I said, I've been apologizing for the fact that my main and only purpose in life is to show compassion, comfort, and provide hope to at least one person every day, because I cannot tune out the hurt, the fear, and hate in the world. And I've been apologizing for that because all of you have said to me, so how are you going to make money at it, Mark? How are you going to build a business funnel? How are you going to scale it? And so I don't bring it up. And there's a part of me that is apologizing for it because in the world of pedal to the metal entrepreneurs, it feels weak. And I don't think it is weak.
I totally agree. Can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind?
Yes.
So I had the opportunity again to listen to you. I'm not sure what the video is about, right? Let me just... My Wake Up Call with Dr. Mark Goulston, new podcast announcement. This is way in 2018. And you gave a story of a situation where you were called in to help a patient, and the eyes, you said the eyes were, the person's eyes were open wide, like saucer-eyed. And for me, that memory that you just shared, it's so amazing that your mother actually did what you did with that patient, where without words, she actively listened, and she was able to then, she was then able to help you, like to comfort you. And the importance of that, and to see what you're doing today and what you have done today, is pretty intriguing to me, how that connects. Helping others with their nightmares.
Well, the anecdote, at least the wide-eyed anecdote, which really taught me about how to listen into people's eyes, is I was called up to the cancer unit at UCLA, and the cancer doctors had said, we need an order to put this patient's arms and legs in restraints, because he's pulling at his IVs, he has a respirator in his throat, and he's pulling at everything, and you need to come up so you can okay the order. So I go up there, I walk into the room, and he can't talk because there's a respirator in his throat, and his eyes are wide as saucers, and he's groaning at me. And I said, what is it? And he's just groaning, and what the doctor said, well, he's psychotic. He's agitated, he's pulling at everything. Just write the order. And I looked at him and I gave him a pencil to write, but his hands were restrained and he just scribbled, but he was screaming at me with his eyes. And I said, what is it? And then I just shrugged my shoulders and I said, look, you're pulling out your IVs, you're pulling at your respirator, you're kicking. I need to put you into restraints. I'm going to give you a medication to calm you down. And then when you calm down, we'll take everything off and it'll be okay. And he just kept moaning and screaming at me through his eyes. And then a day and a half later, the doctors called me. They paged me, and they said, Mr. Jones is up. He's off the respirator. He's off the restraints. He's sitting up in bed, and he told us to page you. So I go into his room, and he's calmly sitting there, and he grabs onto my eyes like I grabbed onto Nancy's, and he said, take a seat. And he literally sat me in a chair with his eyes, and he wouldn't let go of my eyes. And he said, what I was trying to tell you is that a piece of the respirator had broken off and was stuck in my throat. And you do know that I will kill myself before I go through that again. Do you understand? And he just held onto my eyes, and I teared up. I'm tearing up now. And I said, I understand. I'm so sorry. So sorry. But that was the lesson that taught me that you need to listen into people's eyes. And I will tell you, Engel, that if you listen into people's eyes for hurt, fear, and anger, it's always screaming at you. If you just look for it and listen for it, and when people get a sense that you're looking and listening for it with no other purpose than to lessen it, they just lean into it. They just lean into it.
Definitely. All right, my friend. Well, we've arrived at our destination. But before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. But before I even do that, what was your favorite song when you were 12 years old?
I'm kind of embarrassed. I think it was Venus by Frankie Avalon.
All right.
What was yours?
Mine was by Helen Baylor. Can you reach my friend?
I'm going to listen to that, and I'm going to trade mine.
Yeah, definitely. All right, my friend. Well, we've arrived at our destination, but before we get off this time machine, there is a small declaration form. So it's yes or no. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready?
Yes.
Mark, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to? Hit me, yes or no?
Yes.
Are you married?
Yes.
Do you have children?
Yes.
Do you believe in God?
Yes.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
I am blessed with an inner circle of friends.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
I hardly watch TV at all.
About 3 hours a week is more accurate.
That's pushing it, maybe.
Okay, what about screen time? The phone and the computer. Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
It's less than 8 hours.
All right, Dr. Mark, if you had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents who you are, Dr. Mark Goulston, what would you say that is?
When you look at the world, I look at the world through the eyes, believing that everyone has goodwill towards you and is innocent. And when they act as if they're not, don't get angry, get confused. So I'm not paranoid at all. I probably should be a little bit more paranoid, but my wife covers that part pretty well. And so whoever I met, I assume innocence and goodwill, and they can feel it. I did that in Russia at the beginning of 6 hours, and they just opened up to me. And then when it sounds like someone is trying to hurt me or be angry, I don't get angry. I just cock my head, I get confused, and I say, what was that about? And it's freed me.
Love it. Dr. Mark, this was such a great pleasure. Before you leave, though, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Well, I hope you'll go to my wake-up call. It's on iTunes, everywhere else, and I've interviewed people like Larry King, Norman Lear, leaders, a woman named Pamela Weibel. She's the world's expert in physician suicide. You know, a doctor kills themselves every day in the United States. And they all open up, and I am blessed to have them as guests. And they inspire me, and I hope they'll inspire you.
Definitely. Dr. Mark Goulston, again, thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
This segment has been brought to you by Amazel Enterprise.